Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Shake It Up the podcast. I am your host, Steve Brown, and it is my pleasure to bring to you today Miss China Hayes from South Carolina. And haven't met, but we were actually very close together about a month ago when I was down on Fripp Island, which is one of the barrier islands in South Carolina. So, anyway, um, let's see, a couple things that I should touch on. One, I am going to be coming out with a video relatively soon. It will not appear in the podcasts, where I am going to reach over here. There we go. This is actually my control unit for my DBS. And what I'm going to do live, well, video recorded, is I'm going to turn it off, wait an hour, and turn it back on. Now, I'm not going to make you guys sit there for the hour, but I want you to see how profoundly it has changed my life, and we're going to talk a little bit about that when I do that video. But I did want to promote that in case I wanted to do it now rather than at the end. So anyway, China, my apologies for taking all of your time, but now that we've got, I think, all of the bugs worked out, welcome. And let's question number one is, how long have you had the tremor? When and why did it become an issue for you? Take it away.
So I always have had a tremor my whole life. It's been subtle, very little, non um, debilitating to my life. 4 years, about 4.5, 5 years ago, I got diagnosed with H. pylori bacterial infection in my stomach. And they had to eradicate it with five antibiotics at the same time. And in doing so, it put my body into a fight or flight. And since I already had essential tremors, it just aggravated even more to where it actually debilitated my life for a while. Um, I, couldn't walk 5 feet without looking like a hopping bunny. Um, Being in the heat, it aggravated it. My emotions aggravated it. Um, and just everything, once I tried all the medicines that the doctors had tried, saying, hey, this could work, this could work, we realized that none of the medicines worked, as well as I got more side effects. And saying so, my doctor just basically said, hey, why don't you try getting stronger than your tremors? Because medicines are not working for you because you're having more side effects than help. Um, And 4 years later, I am now on Instagram, Facebook, starting on YouTube. Um, but now I have actually, right now, as of yesterday, I had 107 followers. Steve has mentioned we tried doing this prior, and at that time I was at like 75, 80 followers. So just in that time, I've already increased about 25 followers, which is amazing. It just shows that my story is needed out there. Um, and my workouts, they're not primarily weightlifting, they're more movement based. So I make sure that every movement I do, I make sure I it's a functional movement. So getting up from the floor, bending over, those type of movements, so that way my body reconnects how to do things without the tremor, or how to control the tremor during those times.
That's remarkable, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was that your story is so unique, because I've not heard the strength based method of treatment before. Because believe me, I hear you. Before I had my surgery, and even now, I'm still struggling. I get up to about 2 miles, and I have to take it really easy because, and that's more a function of the uh, unit than it is anything else. And that's something that the neurologist is working on right now, is to see how
Mm,
or why. And it may just come down to the point where if I go for long walks, I simply turn this thing off. And
yeah.
it's kind of a head rush when you turn it on, but that's what it is. But um, believe me, and I don't know about you, but I had a really good support mechanism. I've got 2 daughters, my wife, God bless her, for putting up with it and stuff. I assume, everybody's kinda stuck by you?
Oh, yes. I honestly would not be here without my immediate family, my husband, my mother-in-law, my 2 kids. Thankfully, they're both teenagers now. Um, but when everything started, they just kept asking questions, and I never held anything back. I always just said, "Hey, I don't know what's going on with my body, but it's doing this now." You know, And then once I got diagnosed, I explained it to them. And even now, like they see it and they know that as long as I don't shake for more than a couple seconds and I'm able to rebalance myself, re-stabilize my core, um,
Mhm.
usually it goes away or I'm able to actually function or do whatever I need to do.
Good.
But on the bad days where it's very evident that I am shaking and I'm looking like I'm shaking, they ask a lot more questions. They say, "Hey, do you need anything? Have you rested? Have you ate?" Because all those
Mhm.
factors factor into if they get aggravated. So me being a go 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 person, they know, hey, let's make sure she's done the basics. If she's done the basics, she'll let us know that she needs help. Because 4 years ago,
Right.
I was calling them from the bathtub, going, "Hey, I can't get up. I'm gonna slip
Mhm.
if I stand up because I'm shaking." Couldn't pour a drink without sloshing all over the counter, and I just
Not wearing
actually
it.
did a
Yep.
video. Yep, I just did a
Believe me.
video a couple days ago, and I was actually shaking, tremoring, and you could see that it was shaking the bottle, but the liquids were staying in it. I opened it and was sitting there talking with my people, and it wasn't moving, and I was just like astonished. I was like, this is showing that this is working. Yeah, it's still there. As you see, I can actually hold my hands up and it's going. But holding a
But
drink,
that's
I
not
can do
terrible.
it. No,
No,
as long
no,
as I don't
and
spill it.
yeah, I there was a point at which I had to drink coffee through a straw.
Yeah,
They didn't have we were in a where we were, they didn't have to-go cups, that had a little sippy hole, at the top, so I had to take a China cup and literally suck the coffee up through a straw. Now, in my case, coffee had no effect on the tremors, and that's why
yeah.
if you're listening, you're probably saying, "Well, don't drink the stupid coffee, it makes the tremors worse." No, it doesn't. Not everybody. Not everybody.
Not everybody.
Um,
Because
yeah.
I
Yeah, I
drink a
was,
32 ounce.
you what?
I drink a 32-ounce cup of coffee 5 days a week for work, and
Oh my gosh.
I'm able to function. Yeah, but I
No,
used to drink energy drinks and caffeine and coffee all day long, but I that's my sweet spot. If I have that, it doesn't aggravate it, and then also it helps me to do what I need to do and give me the energy that I need to do to move. So,
yeah, I was born before energy drinks became a thing, because my daughters are in their 30s, and,
mhm,
you know, uh, particularly the one. The other one, she's always bouncing off the walls, but the younger one, does drink energy drinks and, her boyfriend energy drinks and that type of thing. So, that's fine, until somebody well, you've got Panera in South Carolina, correct?
yes,
The restaurant Panera?
yes,
You do? You don't? Yeah.
yes, we do.
They had these what they call loaded drinks, because a couple people died, from, caffeine overdose.
I remember about that.
Yeah.
My
So
mom my
they're
mom
behind
actually tried it
they're
one
behind the
time and
counter. Well, they still have them, but you have to ask for them now, and I don't think
yeah.
they'll give it to anybody under 21 or something like that. But, yeah, it's like, how high can you Ugh. And I I I remember taking caffeine pills when I was in college, way back in the and it all they did all they did back then was they made me shake. They didn't really wake me up or anything else, but now it doesn't really matter. So okay,
Yeah.
um, so we've discussed. Well, moving forward, now you're not on any medication for your tremor now, correct?
No, I'm only on medication for my bipolar and my migraines.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I've got a couple of friends that
That
suffer
and
from
my
migraines.
anxiety.
Well, and
Yeah.
the anxiety thing can trigger tremors in and of itself.
Hmm.
Like even now, if I
Yep.
get into a very anxious situation, even though I've got the DBS thing going and all of that, I feel a little bit of a tremor and stuff. Like right now, talking to you, it's dead calm. Um, but
Yeah.
it's just it's maddening. There's no other way to put it.
It really is.
So,
It really is. Yeah.
moving forward, with the exercising that you've been doing, are you still making progress, or are you just trying to maintain where you're at with that?
So I'm always progressing in my weightlifting portion of it. Um, but my movement based exercises, like my get ups from the floor, um, anything that, correlates to a functional movement in life,
Mhm.
picking up things, putting things down, getting up from the floor, jumping up on things if you're trying to get away from something. Um, all of those. I don't actually push myself or progress on those. I kind of just make sure that I'm able to maintain, and if I'm able to progress on any of them,
Mhm.
I always look forward to it. But it's not a need. It's more of, hey, I can still function. I can still make sure I can tie my shoes. I can still make sure that I can pull myself up. I can wipe my, behind. Anything. I correlate a lot of my movements to things that would help me in life. Um,
Sure.
and I just make sure that I go till I can't do it anymore. So that way, when it comes time to correlate it to life, I know I can do at least one because I can do two or three of them
Sure.
and when I
That's
work it out.
great.
So it makes sure that if I ever need to, at least in life, I can do one thing and make sure I get up from the floor at that time or tie my shoes. So it's more it's a balance and just seeing how my body feels. Um,
Mhm.
if I feel that my core is very unstable, I will focus more on core exercising, making sure that I'm balancing, doing my single leg lifts while holding a weight over your head. Um, anything
Okay,
to
yeah.
challenge yourself and balance. I do a lot of that to make sure that if my tremor gets too bad to where it shakes me over or knocks me over, my body knows how my core is strong enough to rebalance itself and knows what to do because I'm
Right.
always trying to make sure that I'm in any balancing situation so I don't fall, which is our biggest fear when it gets really bad. And
Mhm.
I'm just preparing for it to just continuously get worse. But as we see it, it's working because my tremor there is now 24/7. It's there. But as my followers see and people that live with me, it's nowhere where it was 4 years ago, and I hope to keep it going this way as long as
Well,
I
do
can.
you find that your tremors are better the more you rest? In other words, if you get a good night's sleep, are your tremors better in the morning? Or some because I've heard it like in my case, when I first woke up in the morning, I had no tremor. It
Hmm.
took about 30 minutes for it to kind of kick in. When the brain woke up, the tremor started. So, and I didn't know if you'd seen any correlation with rest and the tremor.
Yes. So I work full time still, 48 hours a week, and it's a pretty demanding job, but I love it. Um, but I do actually take an extra day off once a month to have an extra day of rest to make sure that I don't over exhaust my body. And then I do notice that if I do have a good full 8 hours of sleep, which is hard for me, um, Saturdays and Tuesdays are the 2 days right now that I'm able to get a full 8 hours and a little more.
Mhm.
That I wake up and I have probably about an hour um, before, if I once I start moving though, it and I'm active and consistently active, it's there. But if I slowly move, I have about an hour that I'm like, hey, I'm not shaking. Let's do some crocheting. So
Yeah.
those are the opportunities I take hold of. And I take naps on my days off, so I can have a second little burst of energy to do whatever activity I want to do. Right now, I'm crocheting. My daughter got me back into doing crocheting because she's doing the animals, and so we've got that going.
So, now do you crochet with her?
um, Not yet, but she's actually helped me figure out some stitches. She's encouraged me to not just do flat crocheting, like granny squares or blankets, but she encouraged me to actually make a frog, which I'm literally probably going to be finishing today. It
Okay,
has
so
I
you're
have just
able to
have to
your
sew it
hands
together.
okay, so you're able to manipulate your hands well enough to do that. Because for
Yes,
me, I lost all control of my hands. To hang a curtain rod or something was, you know, which should take 15 minutes took me an hour and a half. That type of thing.
yeah,
Because I couldn't hold a drill. I couldn't, that's how bad it was. So that you're able to do something like that means you've made remarkable progress.
yes, yes. Which is, I used to crochet. I Before I was diagnosed, I had just finished crocheting a king size weighted blanket. It took me two
Mhm.
years to do that because of how big it
Wow.
was. Um, but yeah, now I did a little project of a little frog, probably about a foot long by about 8 inches wide. And it took me a week. And the video said it's a 8 hour project. And I worked on it for about 6 hours a day, every day.
Well,
So
yeah.
it takes me a lot longer, but I'm able to actually do it. And as long as I take breaks, you do it in increments. That's the key to essential tremors is you go until your tremor you can't handle it, and then you stop. And
Right.
that's how I do my workouts and how I live my life. Like if I'm out in the heat, as soon as I start to feel a little exhausted, okay, I got to get back inside and cool off or drink some cold water quickly.
Mhm.
I know my little triggers to handle and make sure that it doesn't get to where I can't control it and it gets away
Well, and
from me.
you're in South Carolina, which, as we know, is blazing hot in the summer. Do you find that hydration is important uh,
Yes,
in triggering your tremor?
yes. If I do not hydrate well enough, at least I drink Callaway Blue 16.9 ounces. I drink about four of those a day. And if I don't drink that, my tremors are way, 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 way worse the next day. Um, to where it's very noticeable. Whereas on a daily basis, you can't tell unless I hold still and hold my hands out. Um, you know, so it's very noticeable. Hydration is key, and diet. Um, it's surprising, but the healthier you eat, it helps your body to not sustain on sugars and actually
Yeah.
do what it needs to do and function, um, and continuously regenerating cells and muscle. You need to be eating right, and in order to do that and make sure that you're able to reconnect, just the way that my neurologist explained to me is that the way that I am building my muscle and controlling my tremor is I am creating new pathways in my brain to my muscle connection and skipping over those um, little bumps in my pathways throughout my body
Right.
um, to avoid the tremors. Yeah, it's still there, and it's a bumpy road, but it's a smoother road because it's taking a detour. Is the best way he explains that my brain is
Believe me,
functioning to
I
get
understand, and
over.
when they talk about the programming for DBS, it's somewhat similar. It's not the same, but there is a component where they can, uh, well, on the electrodes that are in my brain, there are four places that they can tap into on two sides. So there's
Hmm.
eight combinations, and they can tap into however they need to do it to get to where it alleviates the tremor. And I was, as I've said, I'm very fortunate. I'm in about the 95th percentile of good outcomes with deep brain stimulation. Um, it doesn't mean that it's a panacea, and there are times like you were talking about the walking and and stuff, and you actually gave me an idea um, about next time my wife and I go for a walk in a park. Um, Try turning it off because I don't really need it on while we're walking in the park. Okay, because my
Hmm.
my tremor was primarily my hands, a little bit with my neck and stuff, but I had more of the traditional. Yours, as a result of an illness that preceded it, or at least exacerbated it, is
Hmm.
that's the first time I've heard that. And I'm actually gonna bring that up to my neurologist, but she she's on maternity leave, so I'm not gonna see her for a while. But I'm fortunate that she only needs to see me about twice a year. So we'll see what happens there. So, is there anything I've forgotten to ask you about that you need to share?
No, I think we've covered a lot of my journey and what I'm here for. I'm not afraid of questions. A lot of people go, "How are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" You know, it's there's plenty of things of reasons you want to live. You don't want to be dependent on anything. Um, and that's given the fact that I've already prior to all of this. I'm a recovered drug addict. And so a lot of the medications that I refuse to even try is because they're controlled. Um, and I refuse to be controlled by anything
Good.
anymore, and even my tremors. And it's been a life journey to make sure that I'm always stronger than them, and I will always make sure that I do my best, and that's all you can do is never give up.
Very wise words to anybody who's suffering out there from essential tremor. This is there is help. See your neurologist. Try. And I should have asked you, China. Are you the exercises? Were you originally given these exercises by a physical therapist, or did you just kind of make them up on your own? Or
So I follow a lot of movement, gym, um, workout people online. A lot of one of them is Venus Fit. A lot of her, I've taken a lot of her exercises and incorporated them into how they would, because they're functional movements, um, and there are a lot of free weight ones. But I've taken a lot of hers, but I've also gone and I'm like, okay, where are my tremors the most? The ones that I wanted to control the most were the ones in my head, so that I could make sure that I looked normal. Um, so I do a lot of neck exercises and all of that. And then it just kind of all depends. Like my legs, I have a lot of hamstring weakness, which is where my weakness. So I don't do a lot of squats. I don't do a lot of that, but I do a lot of RDLs and those type of lifts. You know, it just depends on how my body is feeling, and I look for things that I feel would help, and I try it out. And if it doesn't work for 6 weeks and I don't see improvement, I try something else. And it's been like that for the last 4 years. And I think I've gotten it down to where I've gotten everything every day of the week that I'm like, okay, everything's getting worked on and it's helping something functional in my life.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it, China. Thank you so much. And for the viewers, I am going to, with China's permission, there will be her or, well, can they email you directly or would you prefer they go through me?
Oh, yeah, they can do email directly,
Okay.
ChinaH2007 at gmail.com. Also, you can message me on any of my media platforms. I check them at least once a day, try and repost and respond as soon as I see them. So don't hesitate. We're all here to help each other. We're in this fight together.
And that email address will be in the description. It'll also be in the description of the podcast version. So, China, thank you so much for putting up with all of the technical difficulties. I don't know if I said it at the beginning, but we basically had to throw out the original interview because the weather was just playing havoc with the recordings. First, they wouldn't upload, then I couldn't download. It literally was 3 weeks before I could download the entire um, audio video, and then to find out that something had gotten screwed up and the video and the audio portions weren't synced. So, you had the video, and then, you know, a second later, all of a sudden you'd hear China speak or something like that. So, um, just so you know, putting these things together, there's a lot of little pieces and parts. And even while we had some technical difficulties earlier this time, and my wife walked into the other room to grab something, we said, "Technical difficulties again?" I said, "Yeah, it happens." So,
Yep.
hopefully, we've worked through it. China, thank you so much for sharing your story, and I think you're going to help a lot of people. So, with that, I'm going to say, if you like what you're hearing, like and subscribe. The links will be down in the description, as I said. And thank you all for joining Shake It Up the podcast. I'm Steve Brown, and this has been China Hayes. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. And thank you. Have a good day.